made a deliberate decision, me and my wife, around bringing them up that way. It's not about having the newest this or the newest that, the most expensive this. Our kids, and they'll tell us this, the best times that they have with us are days out.
Welcome to the first episode of the FounderDad podcast. My name is Danny Feltzman, and today I'm joined by Dave Crompton from the United Kingdom. Dave is a father of 2 beautiful children and a life coach for parents dealing with mental health issues. He's had some trials and tribulations, being a businessman, a father, and a husband, and was honest and open enough to join us and share his experiences. We're happy to have him. Hope you enjoy. Don't forget to subscribe and stay tuned for much more. Appreciate you taking the time, Dave. We recently met online on a parenting forum where I really liked the stuff that you were posting. We connected, we started chatting, and I love what you're working on. So I guess it's strange to say for our guests, which don't even exist yet because we don't even have guests. But let's start with like a little bit of, you told me, but let's start with your life story. Where'd you grow up? Where were you born? And then I definitely want to transition to how you met your wife and when you had kids and kind of the things that changed in your life and how being a parent kind of affected you. But yeah.
Okay. So hi, thank you for having me. My name's Dave. I'm from a seaside town called Southport in England, in the northwest of England. So it's sort of near Liverpool and Manchester, sort of halfway between them. Born and raised there. So I've lived here all my life. And I've, I don't not enjoy living here. Some people grow up and they think I've just got to get out, and it's the first thing they want to do. That's never really been my thing, so that's probably why I've been here all this time. So that's where I'm from. What else was it you wanted to know then?
Did you meet is your wife like a high school sweetheart? Did you guys grow up in the same city?
So she's from Southport too. We didn't go to school together. Although ironically, since we got to know each other, our paths crossed when we were younger. Our paths crossed when we were in our, early 20s. Mm-hmm. We got together when we were, I think it was about 25. So yeah, lots of moments when we did actually cross each other, but just never got together, never knew each other, never became friends that way. The way we met was I used to do a lot of singing, a lot of gigging, play guitar, sing. So I used to play all over, certainly all over Southport and the Northwest.
You used to sing your own songs or a cover?
Yeah.
Really?
Singer-songwriter.
I didn't know you were a musician. I see a guitar behind you, and now it makes sense.
Yes, there's about eight or nine in this house, spotted around all over the place. So yeah, I've been into music since I was a kid. Since I was like 5, I started playing. But yeah.
Have you ever tried to, because I know that's not what you do for work, but have you ever tried to make that your kind of vocation, your profession, and take that?
Yeah, that was very much, certainly in my teen years, early 20s. That was my thing. That was what I wanted to do. And
why'd you stop?
It never materialized really. I used to do it all the time. When I got with my wife and when I had kids, it kind of changed for me.
Because you probably had to, you were more concerned about making money and taking care of your family. It wasn't bringing in money.
Yeah. And that led then into my depression as well. That wasn't the key reason, but why I sort of changed and then why I stopped doing it. I fell out of love with it, really. My relationship with music changed. I went from the singer-songwriter, playing my own stuff, playing in venues, to playing covers in pubs, for whoever's there, and not wanting to do that. And then as my kids were getting older, and they're still young now, they're 8 and 11. But when I mean older, as in they can sit up and watch TV with you of an evening, you know, I'd be going out on a Friday night, Saturday night, rain's coming down, wind's blowing a gale, and my wife's snuggling up with the kids ready to watch a movie. And I'm going out to do something that I don't really want to do, you know.
Well, maybe you didn't want to do it because you started doing covers and you weren't doing your own music. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Maybe, I mean, it's something to talk about.
Absolutely.
But I feel like if a person has a passion and a love and then they stop doing it, or they're going again.
Yeah.
Their inner voice, then that's going to be like that's going to be a problem. You know what I mean? Yeah. So that's interesting.
Absolutely.
It's definitely something to touch upon. I mean, yeah,
yeah.
You know.
I fell out of love with it.
Well, you fell out of love with it because you started not being your own person. You started playing cover songs, and you understood that you're just like playing for like people smoking cigarettes and being drunk at a pub, as opposed to, you know, having people that appreciate your music, your songwriting, your voice, and being you.
Absolutely.
I'm sure if you were being you and singing your own songs and doing your own thing, you wouldn't have that, you know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
so I think I've gone off on a bit of a tangent there, but that's how I met my wife. I was going into the studio to be recording a demo, and I knew a couple of lads who were in another band. So I needed a drummer and a bassist for the demo. And I went round to the drummer's house to have a chat to him about it. And that's how I met my wife, because she lived there at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Amazing. And then how long were you, like, did you get married immediately? How long were you dating? When did you have kids?
Yeah, so we met when we were about 25. Not when we hit it off right away. It wasn't really that long till we moved in together. We had our first child, our daughter, when we were 27. And we got married a year and a half later. So
do you remember the day that she was born? Do you remember, like, tell me about that day?
Yeah. Absolutely.
And tell me about take me a little bit earlier back. Tell me about when you found out that she was pregnant, when you were kind of prepping to have the kid. Were you nervous? Were you afraid? Because everybody when they becomes a parent the first time, I think they're probably terrified out of their minds. I know I was. So tell me about that whole experience. Like, what'd you guys do? How did you prep, and how did you get yourself, if you did, into like the mindset of like, I'm going to be a dad?
Yeah. So we hadn't planned it per se. You know, we talked about having kids. My wife, she won't mind me saying this, but my wife has endometriosis.
Mm-hmm.
So we were told by the doctor that, you know, it could take up to 4 years for her to be able to get pregnant, if pregnant at all. So there was always that worry that, you know, maybe this won't happen for us. But anyway, we very luckily got pregnant quite quick, really. So we weren't expecting it to be that quick. We thought it was going to take a while. You know, we'll have a few years, but we got pregnant quite early on, so that was great.
Well, that is one thing. Hold on, if I could stop you, but that is one thing to be kind of grateful and like be positive for, right? Because a lot of people try to get pregnant and they can't. You know, a lot of people try and they try and they try, and the fact that you guys did that so quickly without any issues, you know, it's a blessing. So that's definitely one thing to be grateful for, you know.
Absolutely, 100%. So how did I find out? I can still remember we lived in a flat at the time. It was our first flat, and she took me to one side, and she was worried that I would be upset about it or like panicky or, you know. But it felt like, you know, the most natural thing in the world for me. It wasn't, you know, it could have been a shock because, as I say, we weren't like, let's start now. But yeah, she told me, and I was just, you know, excited, giddy, like a kid. So that sort of immediate fear or any of that didn't happen for me, really. I was just like, are you sure? You know, is this for real? So
I think that's like the reaction that should be, and that's probably the reaction that like every girl is afraid of hearing, like the opposite, but so happy when she hears like yes. It's like a guy when you're trying to propose to a girl, right? If you want to, you have this thing like, she could say no, right? So like
Absolutely.
you're being so vulnerable. The same thing. She came to you so vulnerable. She's like, oh, the fact that you were happy about it probably made her just as happy, you know, if not more.
Yeah, absolutely. You just reminded me there actually from when I did propose to her. The first thing she said to me was, "Are you joking?"
Oh, I thought you were gonna say, what took you so long?
Yeah, no. She thought I was joking. I was kneeled down in a muddy puddle in Scotland, but yeah. But anyway, that's
Aw.
the story.
Well, Scotland sounds beautiful. Muddy puddle sounds romantic.
Yeah. Do you want to hear that story?
Sure. Yeah.
We go for that. Yeah, so we were up in Scotland. We'd already had our first child at this point. My dad lived in Scotland. When he and my mum split up, he stayed in Scotland. So we were up staying with him, and I'd told him about it. I'd asked my wife's dad for permission, and he was all okay with it. But I knew my wife would want to pick the ring herself. So I didn't have a ring. So I bought a joke shop ring, quite a big one with a big diamond on it, a fake plastic diamond on it. And I had that in my pocket. So I was planning to do it on the first day we were there. Have you heard of Linda's Farm?
Nope.
No, it's like an old monastery that's on this island that you can only get to when the tide's out.
Oh wow.
Up in the top north of England. So we went there. We spent the day there, and she had a cob on all day. So in England, she was moody. She was ratty. She was in a mood all day, and I thought to myself, I'm not proposing like this. I couldn't do it. I couldn't do right for doing wrong that day. But I had this bruise on my leg because I was carrying this ring round with me all day, and it was digging in my pocket. But yeah, so I didn't actually propose that day. I did it the following day. We were up in Edinburgh by the Firth of Forth Bridge. So there's like quite a famous bridge that goes across from Edinburgh. So I gave my daughter to my dad, and he went off, and I went for a little walk down to the front with my wife and proposed there in the rain and the muddy puddle. And yeah, I gave this whole spiel, nice and romantic, and she's just laughing at me saying, "Are you joking?"
I mean, bro, you're a genuine. I mean, I'm not saying this is like a bad thing, because it's actually a good thing, especially in our day and age when it's not, cool. But like that's genuinely romantic. You know what I mean? That's awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah. Respect.
Cool. It was
she
quite
said
funny
yes.
though. She did say yeah.
That's good.
But all the family were expecting us to phone them on the day before, you see, because they were expecting me to propose that first day. So everyone's on pins waiting to see if she said yes or not. And I had to tell them all I hadn't proposed to her because she was in a mood with me all day.
So you never had, okay, well, I want to, all right. When you became a dad, like did anything, because like people say like, all right, the day I became a father, like my life changed. Yeah. My history, I never got that. Like when I saw my kid, and I tell this story a lot, like I just held him and I was like, it's only from my experience, like the responsibility of being a parent, the realization that I am a dad came with time. Plus you see the kid more, you get attached, you understand like, wow, this thing is actually like alive and it's, flesh and blood. When did what sort of realizations happened in the beginning? How was that entire the first couple months, the first couple weeks, the first year? Like what was going on in your head, and how did you guys manage it?
Yeah, the sort of the immediate moment, it didn't happen for me there just because it was so stressful. The birth wasn't exactly straightforward. My daughter had the cord wrapped around the neck and she couldn't get her out, and then the doctor had to come in, and there was just all sorts. So it was mayhem, really, and it had been such a long time, and everyone was tired and whatnot. So there wasn't really, other than the immediate feelings of joy and whatnot at the start. It was, the first realization for me was when we left the hospital the following day. All of a sudden it was like, there's your baby. It was, we're on our own now. Who's going to change the nappy? The nurse has been doing this in the hospital. The nurse has been clothing, doing the nappies, making sure the feeding's okay. And all of a sudden, we walk out that ward with the baby in the carrier, and that's all on us now. So that was quite a realization point as well. And and just how the immediate sort of sense of importance of being the one, this baby is totally reliant on you now, to the point of when we were driving home, I remember you putting her in the back of the car, putting all the seatbelt on the chair and all that. And I must have drove home no faster than 15 mile an hour the whole way home. Every sort of bump and every little curb and every turn, it was so gentle in the car. A big queue of cars behind us because we're going so slow. Which now you look back on, and that sounds quite bizarre, but it was that immediate sense of how precious the baby is, and you're the one that's responsible for it now. That really sort of hit me, leaving the hospital and coming home that day. The other main sort of realization for me was around my life wasn't about me anymore. And that's certainly something that I have developed my thinking around when I had my issues with mental health. Because you do have to make time for yourself. It isn't all about the child. But that I very much went into that view that, up until that point, I could do what I want, go where I want, when I want. I had my wife who was my partner at the time. We weren't married at the time. But all of a sudden, I wasn't the most important person in my life.
From my experience, like, I understood how important my existence is, because I started thinking about, all right, if I'm gone, if I don't take care of my body, if I don't take care of myself, if I'm gone tomorrow, I'm going to leave this little guy in a world that's becoming more and more complicated and crazy. So, I became a lot more conscious of like my diet, my habits, what I'm doing. Like, am I going out? Am I eating right? Am I partying too much? Like, what? And I started thinking about my own health and my own longevity, because I want to be around as much as possible. But when you're not only responsible for yourself, it gives you meaning. You know what I mean? For me, it gave my life meaning. Like, I would just kind of aimlessly going about doing my own thing, kind of never really ask myself what I want to do. And when I had my kid, I was like, all right, well, this is like the purpose, right? So okay. And what's your name? What's your daughter's name?
Ophelia.
Ophelia, good name.
Yeah.
Okay.
We got that. It was from a film, Pan's Labyrinth. Don't know if you've heard of that. Yeah, so Ophelia's a Shakespearean name, I think, which is spelled with a P and an H.
Yep.
But in the Pan's Labyrinth, there's a little girl called Ophelia in it, and it's spelled with an F, which is the Spanish way, apparently. That's where we got the name from.
Okay. So, did you guys read any parenting books? Like, how was that first year, and kind of what moments stand out during that like first year or first couple of years of life when you were like, just like, wow, this is so cool, this is so amazing?
For me, it was a conflict between the two. I was so happy, the joy you feel, the unconditional love. I still remember now. I think it was the midwife when they come round to the house and they give you all this advice. And I got this from the books as well, saying, you sleep when they sleep, because you're going to be so tired that if they go to sleep, you go to sleep. But I couldn't do that, because when she fell asleep in my arms, all I wanted to do was just sit there and look at her. My wife would come over and try to take her and say, "Go on, you go and get yourself to bed," and I'd be like, "Nah." I loved it, absolutely loved it. And I didn't have any issues with that becoming the priority for me, around, going out and seeing your friends and wanting to do other things. I didn't have that. I wanted to be there.
Wow.
But that brought with it this conflict around as well, this huge pressure that I almost put myself on to be the best dad, the best thing that this child could have, to be the best provider. So that, I did put myself under a lot of pressure as well.
Mm-hmm. So talk about that. So, I mean, you want to be the best dad that you can be, but what does that mean? What does it mean to be a good dad?
Yeah. So to be there for them, to provide for them.
Which you did. You were there. You
Yeah.
provided.
Yeah. To give them the best life you can give them. But that in itself immediately took on a new role, especially with my working life, because all of a sudden, we were going to get a house. We had a mortgage we were trying to get. I started taking my work life more seriously around going for promotions, which came with the stress. But the more promotions, the more money I could get, which means I could get, provide more for my family. But that took me away from the family because I was working more. New roles meant I would work early, get in earlier, finish later, have to work away quite a bit. And that's that balancing act between the two, really, in wanting to be there, but also wanting to provide and be the best dad I can be from that sense.
The reason why I asked, like, what's the definition of a best dad is because I'm realizing, like, with my own kid, is that, like, we understand what money is. We know what a nice house is. We've seen all the videos. We know what a yacht, a private plane, and all that stuff. But kids have no idea. Like, kids, their understanding or conceptualization of the world is basically like your apartment and like this house. Like, they don't even understand like the neighborhood, So for them, like, we might think that we need to do a lot, where in the, what's more important is maybe less like the material things, but more like being present, having like a good example of a relationship between a husband and a wife, the tone of voice when you talk to them, the amount of attention, just the fact that you're helping them discover the world together. Like, I guess I'm saying this to kind of, for like, I guess other parents that are going through this, like, not to put too much pressure on yourself, because yes, obviously you want to have a roof above your head and you want to have like food on your plate. But kids need, like, it's a lot more simple than we think, you know what I mean? In the beginning, it's nice to take vacations and you can go to the Maldives or you can go to like, parks and buy them clowns and do all that stuff. But, they need for you to be there. They need the attention, you know what I mean? I think more than anything. But I understand the pressure that you put on yourself because you're automatically like, all right, are we going to be living in a nice house? Are we going to be able to go on vacations? Like, what sort of life do I want to provide? Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's very much the parenting. We've made a deliberate decision, me and my wife, around bringing them up that way. It's not about having the newest this or the newest that, the most expensive this. Our kids, and they'll tell us this, the best times that they have with us are days out. We go for walks, up this hill or go there. When the kids were younger, we were really lucky that we had a friend of ours that had a caravan, a static caravan, in the Lake District in England. And people go, oh, caravan holidays, but we loved it, and the kids absolutely loved it. It was beautiful surroundings. They still talk about it now. Unfortunately, our friends had to get rid of the caravan, so we went there for a good 4 or 5 years, and they want to go back. That's the kind of holiday they want to go on. They want to stay in a caravan in the middle of a woods somewhere.
Yeah, it's adventure, man. That's what we're built for. Like, I mean, we live in cities and we live in like huge metropolises, but we're built for adventure. We're built for the wild. Like, that's what we've been doing for millennia. It's in our blood. And to do that with your parents, I mean, that's like the coolest thing. I know plenty of people. I ask a lot of people, I'm like, what are your, I could even ask you, like, what are the things that stand out from your childhood the most? And a lot of people say it's like, oh, it's it's when we went camping. It's when we went fishing. It's the time that you spend. It's the time that you spend discovering the world together with the parents that keep you safe and like give you the ability to actually go out and do those things.
Yeah, you're right, 100% right. They don't remember the things that you bought them. They remember the time that you spend with them. And that goes for the same as being in the house. For me, with me working, the bedtime and bath time routine when the kids were young, that was my time with them, because I've not seen them all day. I've gone out early and I've not seen them all day. So, that was my time with them. bath time, you know, we loved it. Bedtime routine. We always had a thing that we did, you know, getting them out of the bath. I used to spin them round, and, you know, they didn't want to get out of the bath until it was their turn of doing that, you know, to the point where my daughter was getting so big. I can't do this for much longer because she's so big, you know, in the bathroom. And, you know, we read storybooks every night. We'd read a book before they went to bed. Without fail, that was part of the bedtime routine, and they love that. And you know, they still enjoy reading now. You know, something that they enjoy doing is reading books. Yes, they love the computers, and yes, they love watching TV and whatnot, but those fond memories that they have of doing that with us all as a family, you know, taken into their lives as they've got a bit older as well.
Well, I mean, it sounded like you know what you're doing, and you kind of, your head's in the right place, and you instilled those kind of family values in that time from the start. You know.
Yeah.
Were there any difficulties or challenges? I mean, especially when you have your second kid. How's the relationship between your second child is a boy or a girl?
Yeah, a boy. Yeah.
So when Ophelia found out that she's having a brother, how was she with that, and how was the kind of that whole thing? Did she help out?
Yeah, she loved it. She was quite the sort of the mothering type, if you like. You know, she looks after her little brother, and then as that relationship developed, you know, she was not bossy, but, you know, she was the one in charge, and she would get him to do, you know, whatever she wanted, really. But they've always got on. They still get on now. I mean, yeah, they have their arguments and whatnot. As all kids do, but yeah, their relationship's fantastic. We did notice there was a change from when my son got old enough to not do what he was told by her all the time, and he started to think for himself. So there was a bit of a dynamic change there between the two of them, when it was a case of, hang on a second, I'm not doing what you're telling me to do every time. But they got through that, you know. And they're two very different kids, but they seem to bounce off each other, which is great.
And your relationship with them is good, right? Like, you've never had any, like,
no. It's always been great, but that's something we've tried to instill in them from the start. Really, is the respect kind of thing. You know, once you start shouting at each other, or you start doing things not nice to each other, you know, they will get pulled up on it. But we won't shout at them. We'll have a discussion.
Yeah.
We'll have a discussion around how it would make them feel if it was the other way around. You know, even though they're acting in the emotion at the time, and it's not how they genuinely feel about each other, but how do they want to act towards each other now that the emotion's gone?
Smart.
Yeah. And it's so we've always gone down that route rather than shouting. You know, there's times when you do get a bit angry or whatnot, but, you know, me and my wife have a great relationship.
Well, that's the most important, is that's going to be the model. If they see you and your wife shouting at each other, then you're not going to be able to tell them not to shout at each other, because you're hypocritical. Exactly. Like kids, you know, kids videotape and remember, and they keep track of everything that you do and say, verbal, nonverbal, all the little mimics. And, you know, you can't say, don't smoke cigarettes while you're smoking a pack. Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
So then when did things start for you to get, like, challenging? Like, cause you obviously, you know, your life changed because of your battles with mental health, and now the work that you're doing is tied around that. So I'm curious how, I mean, to me, it sounds like, other than, and this is probably the start of it, but like, other than the pressure that you put on yourself, you know, I don't see, you know, what, just stimulus for, you know, things to get difficult or sap. You know?
So you're right. With me and my mental health issues, one of the main issues for me was that I didn't have a marriage breakup, job loss, you know, a lost child. You know, I didn't have one of those, but that caused me to not deal with it, to think that this is normal. These thought processes I'm having are normal. These feelings I'm having are normal, because there's other people worse off than me. So I'll just get on with it. And I was your typical man, bloke, as we say here, in a sense of, I just get on with it. I don't talk about my feelings. I don't get upset. Certainly don't talk to my wife about it. I just get on with it.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, so whenever you would kind of have these doubts and these kind of things creep into your mind, you couldn't even talk to like friends about it. You couldn't talk to your wife about it. You couldn't talk to your parents about it.
No.
Yeah, that's rough, man. That's tough.
And some of that was around being a parent as well, because some of that was, I'm supposed to be the pillar in the family. I'm the man. I'm supposed to be the one holding it all together, the pillar of strength that the children can look up to.
Yeah, but
if anyone started to get an inkling that I've not got it all together and I'm actually upset about something, or
I think the opposite. I think you could say, like, listen, part of being a pillar and part of being a man is being able to handle when the wind is trying to shake you or when there's an earthquake, right? Because if you're always firm and there's an earthquake, then you're going to crumble. So you have to be able to be flexible. And maybe, I mean, there's something to be like, I've cried in front of my son before. You know what I mean? I've told him when I'm wrong. Like, I show him, like, this is, it's good to be emotional. It's good to be in touch with, like, this side of yourself, because you're not always going to be able to keep it together, or you're going to think that you need to keep it together, and then you're going to break down one time, and it's going to be really bad because years and years of this pent up stuff is just going to come to the surface. Like, why hasn't there been anybody to talk to? Okay.
Yeah. And you see more of that. It's very common for men to be like that, especially around, like the term man up and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But my first experience, which I didn't realize what it was at the time, was actually before my first child was born. I had a panic attack, which, as I say, I didn't know what it was. At the time, the ambulance got called. I ended up in hospital.
So what is that? Like, how did that feel like? Walk me through it. I'm curious.
Can't breathe, tight chest. My heart was pounding and thumping. I've got pains in my chest. You feel like you're having a heart attack.
Do you remember what triggered it?
No, I was just having my Sunday roast at the time. It just happened. I remember starting getting funny feelings in my chest, and then the tightness, and then I couldn't breathe. I ended up passing out. Woke up in the ambulance with all the things in my arms, but no one knew what it was. They did all the tests, ran all the tests, and that was it. And then I remember further down the line, when I was talking about this to someone, they were saying, well, what was I going through at the time? And I was going for a promotion at work, which was, I really needed to get money-wise, because I had this whole pressure of, got a baby on the way, we need to get more money, I need to buy this and provide, etc., etc. So I was going for a promotion. At the same time, we were buying our first house. And this was back in 2007, when the credit crunch was at its peak. So, we had a mortgage, we were about to sign on the house, then the mortgage got pulled because the bank almost collapsed. So all the mither and stress that was going through with that. Plus I had a baby on the way as well. So if you're looking at the top 10 stressors in life,
that's it. You're in there. You're there. Yeah.
Straight away. And I wasn't talking to anyone about this.
So I'm quite I'm curious, like, I don't know how your relationship with your parents, because we didn't talk about that, but like, you don't have friends that also had kids that you could just be like, fucking go and get a goddamn pint and fucking be like, yo, I'm stressing, I'm bugging out. Yeah. Friends, best friends, no?
No. I mean, I've got friends, I've got best friends, but yeah, it's just.
Really?
It's just not what we do. Yeah.
Interesting. See, that's like, I'm asking because for me, that's like, my background is Russian, right? I was born in Russia, and like, Russian like culture, like all we do is talk, and all we do is talk about existential like problems, because that's all people knew. You know what I mean? Like, all people had was each other, and you would sit at the kitchen, you'd drink or you'd not drink, and you'd be like, fucking life is difficult. This sucks. Look at the weather. I haven't seen the sun in 2 months. Like, I lost my cow or whatever it is, so there's a culture of like openness and, kind of like deep emotional conversations that we're all And that's all we do. Sometimes it's like, oh God, I don't want to hear about your problems, because all people do is talk about their problems.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that, like, coming from your kind of that background, that context where that wasn't something that people talked about. Interesting.
Yeah. No, it's definitely getting better now. I mean, as in general, for me, it's fantastic. You know, I'm very open now about everything that's going on with me. You know, I'm very close to one of my brothers, one of my best friends, my wife, my mum. You know, I talk all the time about how I feel and what's going on with me now, and that's brought us closer together. It's made those relationships a hell of a lot better. But back in the day, that's just not what those relationships were. You know, you didn't talk about that sort of stuff.
So bring me back. So bring me back to the back in the day. Like, do you remember exactly, like, when were you at your? I mean, I hate to go straight into it, but, like, why not, right? Like, what was, like, the lowest point? Like, and what brought you there? Was it the pressure? Was it something happened, or kind of it's called the dark night of the soul, right? It's where everybody. I mean, I've had suicidal thoughts when I was younger, and I've we all go through doubts and dark times when you're just like, what am I doing? Like, I'm either really, really smart, or I'm really, really stupid. And so what was it for you?
So as I say, I didn't have that one thing I could put my finger on to say this is what it is. Therefore, I deserve to feel this way because there's something bad that's happened to me. And so as these feelings grew, I would just push them down and just get on with things. So it got to a point where I just couldn't go on anymore. I would turn up to work. I'd get out of the car, start the short walk into work down the street, and I'd start crying. I'm not, as I say, I was your typical bloke. I don't talk about my feelings. I don't really show emotion apart from when my football team is winning. And that's just not what I did. So for me to just start crying all of a sudden for no reason was quite bizarre.
Is it because you weren't satisfied at your job? You felt like you were meant for something bigger? Was it the routine?
Yeah, it was a whole host of things. I mean, I had to go through counseling to find out what it was. But for me, it was conflicts and needs and values and things not being met. So for example, my day job is working in an office. But if I was to tell you what my passions were, they are music, they are art. I'm creative. I'm a creative person. And that used to be that need was met by the fact that I used to gig. I used to be in bands. I used to play. I used to write. I used to paint. I used to, carve wood. I used to do all that. But as I started to get into my depression and losing the passion for those things, I stopped doing them.
And then it gets worse and it gets worse and it gets worse because you get deeper into a hole. And you move further away from the person that you are and the person that you want to be.
Yeah, exactly. Another classic conflict I had was around parenthood. I had this vision of this parent that I wanted to be. I wanted to be there. I wanted to be at the school plays. I wanted to be at the Christmas nativity. I wanted to be there for the after school clubs. I wanted to be there in the morning. I wanted to be there in the evenings. But for me to provide for my kids and to further my career, to be able to get more money because I'm thinking it's just about the money. I've got to get money to be able to provide for them. So like you said before, we can go on the holidays, we can have the nice house, we can have the nice car. So I'm trying to be a good dad, but that's taking me away because it means that I'm missing all the things that I want to be there for. So therefore, I'm a bad dad. What is a good dad? What is a bad dad?
Well, I mean, like, just hearing you, like, first of all, I want to give you, like, a lot of credit because, I mean, not a lot of people have that approach. You know what I mean? A lot of people don't put family first. Not a lot of parents, not a lot of fathers genuinely want to literally spend 24/7 with their kids. You know what I mean? So, like, good, like, kudos to you for like having that top of mind. You know what I mean? And yeah, I mean, bro, it's unfortunately there's always a sacrifice, and you can't always get what you want at the time, you know?
Yeah.
One thing, I mean, look, just to kind of like, I'm away from my kid right now. I haven't seen my son since February. We're now in the middle of June, you know?
Right.
For me, I love my kid more than anything in the world.
Yeah.
But, you know, I'm okay with the fact that I'm not around, because I know, like, all right, this is a sacrifice that I'm like making now. This is the work that I'm putting in now. This is the life that I chose. And these are the decisions that I made in order to be able to live the life that I want to live with my son later. So for me, like, it's always like, you know, if you were talking to somebody, if you had a friend during that time where you could say, look, you know, Dave, like, it's all good. Like, I know you want to be at home with your family, but like, this is what you got to do. And it's all good because you see them anyway. It could be worse. You could be divorced. They could be living in a different country. Like, you know, put in the time now, keep grinding it out, bang it out. And then later, when you are older, then you're going to be able to spend more time with them together. You know, like, it's, I mean, sometimes just that understanding and that little, you know, like, bit of advice could make it easier, makes it more bearable, you know?
100%. You know, the advice I would give to a parent in my situation that I was in, you know, the thing I've learned from it is, it's a very subtle thing, but it's a mindset shift. So my mindset had changed from I have to do this rather than I want to do it. And this is something that I use in parenting with my kids now. So what I mean by that is, let's say the working the long hours, or the having to be away on working away for a couple of days in a week. That became, oh, I've got to go away again. You know, I've got to tell my kids, oh, I've got to go away again. Rather than it being, I want this job so that I can provide for my kids. So actually, I want to do this to provide. There's a huge difference between have to and I want to.
Even better than want. You could take it a step further.
Yeah.
You could level up and say, I choose to do this.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it is a choice. And I'm choosing it because
I
want to have this and I want to do this. But it is your choice, because then it's, you know, and then you actually give them the understanding that, like, everything is a choice. You're always choosing, right? And it has to be a conscious choice. Like, you don't have to go to work. You don't have to. Nobody's forcing you. Don't go. You choose to go. And if you choose to go, then it's a question of what mindset do you take when you are making that decision, right?
Exactly.
Mindset.
Yeah. And that's huge when it comes to depression, because people that suffer with depression, one of the huge feelings you have is a loss of control. Everything is happening to you. You've got no control of it. Everything is being done to you. And that's true of that mindset shift that we were talking about just then. You know, I have to do this. I'm having to go and work away. It's being done to me. I'm not choosing to do it. And that creates a constant negative connotation with what you're doing day in, day out. Whereas if you can have that mind shift, like you said there, to I'm choosing to do this because I want to provide the best I can, then I'm choosing to do it and I want to do it. So it's positive.
And when you say,
go on.
It might not.
I was going to say it might not be you might not necessarily be enjoying it, but what you are saying to yourself, and this is a life lesson for your kids, is to get something that we want. Sometimes we have to do things that we might not necessarily want to do. We have to work, you know, and we have to put that time in to enjoy the outcome.
Yep. Well, and if you are going to be putting in the time, even if you don't want to do it, just switch your mindset and be like, all right, this is going to be great. I'm going to make the most out of it.
Yeah, exactly.
But like, I think there's something also like NLP psychosomatic, when you say like, I choose to do something, then you're the one taking responsibility yourself. Right. And that's the most important. Like, like if there's another important thing that we want to teach kids, it's like, you are responsible, you choose. Right. And the more responsibility you can, you know, because then you're not going to be blaming on other people's circumstances, anything else for, you know, the situation, you know?
Yeah. To put that a classic example, how I've used that with my kids was around setting the dinner table. You know, you ask to set the dinner table, it's groans and, oh, do I have to? I don't want to do that. Guys, is it my turn to do it? It's my brother's turn or it's my sister's turn.
And
the way we've used that mindset shift for that is, if you don't set the table, you won't get to eat. Now you do want to eat. We're going to have ice cream for dessert. We've got your whatever we're going to be having for the meal. You're hungry, so that's what you want. So to enable you to get that, you have to set the table. You can't eat it with your hands. So it's your choice. You can either not set the table and we won't have tea or dinner, or you can set the table and we can have it. What do you want to do?
Or there's a lot of things, I mean, not or, but in addition to that, but there's a lot of things that we take for granted in our everyday life, like having dinner or breakfast or lunch. So if you turn this into like, wow, how cool is it? How amazing is it that we're all together and we can actually like set a table and have dinner? How awesome is that? Like, we should be grateful, and we should be literally like singing songs like Beauty and the Beast, like set the goddamn fucking table and like be happy about it. Like, like we don't, I think there's definitely something to be said for gratitude. Like, we take a lot of things for granted. And if you don't, like, you could not be having this home. You could not be having this meal. You could be on the street. I mean, like, I don't, there's a lot. The point is not to scare them, but the point is to be like, like, this is amazing. This is so cool. How awesome is that we're all together and we're going to have a fantastic meal.
Yeah.
Set the fucking table.
Indeed.
All right. So then tell me, like, what, so you got into some like serious depression. How was that, dealing with that? And like, also, because I know how much you love your kids, and I guess I'm starting to understand like how difficult it is, because you're waking up and you're seeing them, and then you're unhappy with yourself, but you can't talk to anybody around it, right? So like, what the hell, like, what was going on in your mind? How did you get through that? Like,
yeah, it was, it was hard. I think to answer that question, I'm going to have to go into the sort of, the catalyst for me to getting help and sort of change was around the suicidal episodes, really. And with regards to when I was getting to that point, the stuff at home and me being a parent and being around the kids, that had kind of just gone. I would get home, sit on the couch, the telly would go on, I'd be looking at the telly, but I wouldn't be watching it, and the kids would be climbing over me here, there, and everywhere. And life happens around me, if that makes sense. I often try to describe it by, when you're watching a film or a TV program and they speed it up, but the main characters just sat there still, not moving.
Yeah.
That was what it was like, and I was missing out on so much because it was just a constant. I was just sat there and the world went on around me.
Well, I think your mind was somewhere else. You were thinking about or occupied about some other thought, right? You weren't present in the moment because something else took your mind over. What was that thought? Was you just thinking like, damn, I'm not good enough, I'm not making enough money? Were you thinking about all the things that you don't have, or all the things that you're not like good enough or not worthy enough? Like, what was occupying your mind during that time?
Yeah, there was the feelings of, and it wasn't even self-doubt really. It wasn't, I'm doubting myself. I was a shit dad. I was a shit husband.
Yeah, but you weren't.
Well, yeah, I know. But and I was bad at that. So that hurt, because I wanted to be such a good parent and such a good husband, and I didn't believe I was. The pain that came with that, but was this was the exact opposite of what I wanted to be.
I know, but like, God, Dave, I wish we were friends and I lived in your town, because I would be like, bro, you have kids running all over you. You're not a bad dad. Like, it's like, happiness is expectations minus reality. Maybe you put like some crazy, really like, difficult expectations on yourself, and therefore you think that like something is wrong. But I mean, judging from what you said, I mean, if you're sitting on your couch and you have kids jumping all over you, that's already a sign that you're not a bad dad and shit's not that bad,
Yeah. Well, you can't see that when you're in it.
Yep. That's the thing. You can't see it when you're in it. Yeah. And it got to a point where like you literally, tell me about, I mean, if you don't mind going into it, because I'm fascinated by how the mind works, your mind. But, was there really a point where you were like, oh, it's better for me not to be here? Like, they'll be better off without me? Really? You really thought that?
So it gets to a point where getting up in the morning is painful, because you know what's going to happen, as in you're going to have all these feelings, all these thoughts, all this internal pain, anguish. It's horrible. And you know that's going to happen again today. And it happened yesterday. And it happened the day before. And so just getting up and just functioning hurts.
Well, because of the routine. Because it's a routine that you couldn't break.
Yeah, it's just Groundhog Day.
Groundhog Day. Yeah,
absolutely. And the suicide stuff, where that comes in, and I learned this, and I truly believe this now through the counselling that I went through, is that you don't want to die. You just want the pain to stop. You want that situation to stop.
Yep, you want to change.
Yeah,
you want it to change, and you don't know how to change it.
No, and it's not necessarily that you don't know how to do it. It's that that's the only option that you've got, because life is so shit. I can't, let's snap out of it and I'll go and do this with my job, or I'll snap out of it and I'll start being like this with my family. That whole world is pain and suffering. Well, there's no way back in that world.
Okay.
So yeah, it's not that you want to die. It's just that you want the pain to stop, and there's only one route. Your mind, the depression, tells you that's the way to do it.
Well, you think that there's only one route, right?
Yeah.
Because there wasn't anybody to tell you, like, hey, you could start by making a small little change.
Yeah.
Play your guitar for 10 minutes a day.
Yeah.
Go for a run. Do some push-ups when you wake up. Just change your routine. Change the micro routines.
Absolutely.
That's all you got to do. Yeah.
And the depression, I describe it as, it's like a warm cuddle around you, saying, this is the way to make it all feel better.
Mm-hmm. Were you drinking? Like, were you drinking or doing drugs during this time to kind of numb everything?
Yeah, pretty much drinking every night. Not to a point where it was affecting my work. I was able to still work and function.
Well, was it affecting your relationship with your kids and your family?
Yeah, because all I would do, I'd just come home and that was it. Bump on the couch, and as I say, the world happens around you. And that, going back to that arm around you, and the suicide becomes as a comfort blanket. And that's the way your mind thinks, or certainly that mine did. That it doesn't matter how bad things get. Actually, you've always got that. That's always the thing that will make it better. So it's comforting to have that there.
Well, it won't make it better. It'll just make it stop.
And that's better for you when you're in it.
Yeah.
The best thing is for you to stop feeling like that.
But can I ask you a question? But you said you'd come home and flop on the couch and your kids would be around you. Like, you weren't, I'm not trying to sound like a dickhead, but you weren't interested in playing with the kids, or figuring out how their day was, or doing something with them, build a fort, go outside, go for a walk, play a Lego, break something, teach them music, play some music with them. Really?
No, you have no passion, no drive, no anything.
Okay.
For yourself, for other people, for anything.
And how long was that lasting? How long was this time frame where you were in this funk?
It was building up. I mean, going through therapy and whatnot, it's stuff going back years and years and years. But this bad time was probably 2 to 3 years, I'd say.
That's tough.
Gradually getting worse.
Okay.
It wasn't like that all the time. But you start looking back now, you start to see when I stopped playing guitar, stopped singing, stopped doing this, stopped doing that. And you can look back at it and go, yeah, that's what it is. That's
all right. So what changed? What kind of made you snap, or snap out of it?
Yeah. Well, the So my first suicidal episode was on a train station. I was working in Liverpool for the day, and I was coming home, and I just, you'd thought about doing it, how you'd do it, and all this, and I was just so couldn't cope anymore, and the train was coming in, and it was, um, if I did step out, then all this pain stops.
Mm-hmm.
And it was horrendous. The trains. It was on the underground, so you could see the light coming down the tunnel.
Mm-hmm.
It was
Were you
should I?
alone? Were you
Yeah,
solo? Yeah. Okay.
yeah. And it goes from that thought of what would it feel like if I did it? Would it be and all these suicidal thoughts to actually, am I doing this now?
And what were you thinking? What happened?
The the feeling of release that it would give me was like, oh, all this could stop. But the thing that pulled me back from it was my wife and kids. Not seeing them again, hurting them, doing that to them. People that say suicide is the easy way out. People
Not for
say
them.
that,
Not for
yeah,
them. Not for the ones
it's
that you
self.
leave behind.
You're not. It's not selfish because you're not thinking about you. You're thinking about others. And it's it is hard to do it. In a strange way. Courage isn't the right word, but it takes guts to do it.
Of course.
So it ain't easy.
But if you're concerned, but if the concern is your family, you're not going to leave them in a better situation, because it's always better to have you, and then they're going to be left with picking up the pieces, wondering if they did something wrong, and for the rest of their lives, they're going to be living with that, like, wow, why didn't I tell my dad I love him? Why didn't your wife come up and be like, hey, what's wrong? You know what I mean? So you leave, your pain is gone, but you give them a whole like, boom, that cloud and that doubt.
Yeah, you pass the pain on. So I went home that day, and I was in bits. I got on the train, and it was horrendous. And my wife came home from work, and I just grabbed her, hugged her, and started crying. So I didn't tell her what had happened. I didn't tell her that all these thoughts that were going on at this stage. She knew something was going on with me, but I still didn't tell her what was going on, even at that stage.
She didn't say like what's wrong, and you didn't want to tell her?
No. So the next major stage was I was in work and I was getting quite agitated in the office. And my boss saw this, and she said, come on, Dave, let's take you out of the office where everyone was, and took me to a private room. I think I was swearing in the office, and that's not like me. And, she could see I was getting agitated. So she took me to a room, asked me if I was okay, and it all just came out. Not that I've been suicidal, but, I can't do it anymore. I can't do this. I was crying. And, so she sent me home.
I'm curious, like, how was her reaction? And I guess my question that I'm getting at is, if, and I don't want to say culturally, but that's the only word that comes out, like, if culturally talking about a person's mental health is not normal, or it's not something you talk about, like, do people even know how to react? Like, do people even know how to be like, hey, like, put an arm around your shoulder and be like, I understand, like, and talk to you as if they know, because you're speaking the same language? Or is mental health and these things, are they so kind of non-standard that people even get uncomfortable like talking about it? I'm curious.
You get the full range. I think I can tell when someone's been through mental health issues themselves when I'm talking to them. They don't have to tell me, but you kind of know because they understand. Other people are.
Everyone's gone through it. I hate to break it to you. Everyone does. I mean, it's just a word. Mental health. Yeah, mental health is just a word created to like categorize something, right? And there might be a stigma around it, but like mental health just means like, you know, your brain, your mind, your life experience. You think everyone just walks around with a stupid friggin' smile on their face? No, everyone goes through the same crap. You know what I mean?
Everyone has physical health. Everyone has mental health.
Yeah.
But what I'm talking about is you can tell when someone's gone through mental health issues. You know, there's a difference between having mental health issues and just having mental health. We all have mental health. So, you know, there's those people. There's people who are just quite open and they're inquisitive, which is great. And there's people that struggle with it and find it hard to talk to you about it. It makes them uncomfortable. You know, my boss was fantastic. I can't really remember what she was like at that time. There's a lot of those days are just a blur to me, really.
And how many years ago was this? When was this?
So this was a year in January this year. So it's about a year and a half ago.
So she sent you home, and then you said you actually had like a second, you know, you had a second wave, or what?
I told her I'd take a couple of days off and I'd be back in work in a couple of days.
Okay.
I was for about 7 months.
You took 7 months off of work.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, the next suicidal episode came about a week after that. So I'd been to the doctor, I'd opened up to the doctor, I'd spoken to my wife, and I'd been open to them both about the suicidal episodes that I'd had and thoughts.
How was your relationship with your kids during this time? Were you talking to your kids at all? Were they concerned? Did they talk to you?
So one of the things that I was good at, and one of the things that was one of my downfalls, was that I was very good at hiding it. Which, you know, takes strength in itself, because you've got to put this mask on all of a sudden and act normal and try and be happy when that's not actually how you're feeling. So I got to a point where I couldn't do that at home with the kids. But for them at that stage, you know, I wasn't in a place to talk to them. My wife would talk to them, but not in detail about what was going on. They were just curious as to why Dad's not at work. You know, why is Dad staying at home every day? Why is
and
Dad
what were you
here?
And what were you doing during those like 7 months? Were you just like literally vegging out on the couch, or were you doing like something?
For the first month, you know, I didn't get changed. You know, it gets to the point where I wasn't eating. Unless food was put in front of me, I wouldn't eat, I wouldn't drink. You know, you don't brush your teeth, you don't get washed, you don't do anything. It's horrendous. But I had this other episode, and that was a bad one. I didn't have an off switch with that one. The off switch was my family, my wife and my kids. But that second one, I didn't have an off switch. But I was lucky that my wife had spotted how I was and took the day off work, and stayed at home with me. You know, who knows what might have happened.
So there was a specific day when you were just like worse than usual.
I just can't. Yeah, I can't. You just can't do it anymore. Anything, the whole thing. It's, you know, checking out. And it was horrendous. Yeah. No, there was nothing
could improve your move. Nothing like no music, no movie, no book, no walk to the park. Nothing.
You're not even in a nothing can improve your mood situation. This situation is, I cannot go on anymore. But this isn't, oh, I want to feel happy, or let's just get you outside. This is, you know, this is end of the line.
Okay, so she stayed home.
Yeah, she stayed home. She, you know, and bless her, you know, I can remember her being in tears herself, because how scary would that be for your partner to see you going through that, or, you know, your spouse. But she's amazing.
She never kind of like put any pressure on you when, like, during that month when you were just like not doing anything, to kind of be like, hey, Dave, like, time to go. Let's go. Let's get up. Let's take a shower. Let's go for a run. Really?
Absolutely not. She knew, she helped me with, I had a plan, a daily plan. Today you're going to brush your teeth. Today you're going to have a wash. Today you're going to eat. And that was as basic as my plan was. If I could achieve those things, wow, that's something to celebrate.
Well, that's already good.
Planned that for me, She'd encourage me. She wouldn't beat me up if I didn't do them. She kind of knew when to push me and when not to. But this episode, she was on the phone to the doctors, to all sorts, and it got to the point where it was like just getting down to A&E, the accident and emergency room, and yeah, she dragged me down to the hospital. I think my mum had the kids. I can't remember, and she, got me down to hospital, and I got to speak to specialists, although I didn't really speak to them because I was just, in a mess.
Do you remember the day? Do you remember the day when it was like the first little ray of sunshine? Like when you realized, like, oh, this could actually change. Like.
Yeah. Yeah, I do. It was, I can't remember what day of the week it was, but I'd started counseling, so I'd started seeing a psychotherapist. And that was a big step for me to do that in the first place, to start opening up to someone, to start talking to someone. And I remember after the first few sessions, my wife and my mum would say to me, "Is this right? Is this working?" Because it would wipe me out for days. I'd get home and I'd just go to bed, because it was that exhausting going through it. But I knew it was good because I was able to speak about how I felt for the first time. Yeah. And such a weight, that lift that comes off your shoulders. But it was hard and it wore me out. But anyway, so it was maybe 3 months into this. I'm not sure. And I'd been to a session. My wife was at work. The kids were at school. And I'd come home and I thought, do you know what? I'm going to do a bit of artwork here, and I'm going to put a bit of music on.
Amazing.
Yeah.
There you go.
And my wife came home to music on in the house. He sat on the couch doing some art, and she just burst out crying. And, that wasn't I feel amazing, I can see life in color again at that stage. But it was certainly, I could entertain the thought of putting music on and actually listening to it.
Her seeing that is probably better than the things that she would imagine when she would be coming home from work, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm sure she imagines seeing some worse shit than that, right?
Yeah.
So I'm sure those are tears of joy. Okay.
Yeah. I'd been through that with, not answering my phone or not having my phone on me, and my mum being in tears thinking I'd done something, trying to get hold of my wife. Where's Dave? We can't. I've tried ringing him. I've texted him. He's not answering. And that feels bad. You feel bad for that. Putting people, loved ones that you don't want them to hurt because of you.
So step by step, you started talking to this counselor, and I mean, tell me about kind of your road to how you brought yourself back to then how you transformed into a person whose now like life mission is to help other people that have gone through the same thing.
Yeah.
Tell me about the step-by-step thing, starting from putting on music and doing art.
So the step to go into counseling was my third suicidal episode, where you sort of touched on this before, and it's quite textbook, is I had convinced myself that it would be better for everyone else if I checked out. So at this time, I'd been to see my doctor. I was on medication. My brother would text me every day. My best mate would text me every day. My mum would text me every day. We had, my wife called it the get well crew. I hadn't gone out and told everyone that I didn't want anyone to know, but I had to tell some very close people. And And I thought that that was a drain on them, having to check on me every day. So it'll be easier for them. They won't have to worry about this stuff. That time I mentioned there where I upset my mum because I didn't answer the phone and she's panicking, thinking I'd done something to myself. You know, so I had convinced myself it would be better and easier for everyone if I wasn't around. I thought my wife's amazing. She'll find someone else. I thought to myself, it's bizarre thinking about it now, but I convinced myself kids are strong, you know, kids are resilient, they'll get over it. And that was the third one. So yeah, that was quite bizarre. But anyway, so I ended up starting my counselling. Best thing in the world, you know, hardest thing in the world to do, but that's the number one bit of advice I give to anyone is talk to someone about how you're feeling. So I gradually started getting better and better with the counselling. You know, it was up and down, but, you know, gradually getting better and better. And whenever I got bad and had down days, I was able to take confidence that I wasn't starting from ground zero again. I wasn't starting from the bottom. You always start from a stronger position. That makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. How often were you meeting with the counselor? Was it every day? Was it a couple of times a week? Once a week?
Once a week. Yeah.
That's it?
Yeah. It's money.
That doesn't seem like a lot.
No, you can't. Through the NHS here, it took me over a year to get to see a counsellor, one-to-one. And even then, you only get 6.
You had to wait a year to get help.
Yeah, over a year. And that's not the NHS's fault. It's the money's not there. They don't put the money into the mental health side.
Yeah, the money's there. They're just not putting it in there. They have plenty of money.
Well, the government do, yeah, but they don't give it to the NHS.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so it took me over a year to get that. So I had to pay for it myself. So, you know, it all comes down to that, really. And I was lucky enough to be in a position where I could afford once a week. You know, some people can't even afford that.
So what made you start appreciating and enjoying life? Like, tell me about like the road back. I mean, what was it?
Yeah, it wasn't for me. It wasn't a like one day bump. There you go. Oh, life was amazing. It was very gradual, and this was through the support I had with you know, my wife, my close family, friends, and even work. My boss was great, so it was all small steps and gradual. But the real sort of turnaround, the thing that gave me some passion back, something I was passionate about, was with my blog website. So how that came about was my counselor, my psychotherapist, had talked to me about writing stuff down.
Mm-hmm.
Write down how I'm feeling. You know, there are studies that have proven that the process of writing stuff down helps you process it internally and get things out. You know, she said, you know, write letters to people. You don't have to send them, but write letters. You can screw them up, throw them in the bin, set them on fire, do whatever you want. But just the process of getting them down on paper helps. Mm-hmm. So I started doing this, you know, and I've still got the book now. I've got my own little journal, and I still look back on it to see, wow, you know, the place I was in, the drawings I drew, you know. So I started writing lots of stuff down. And one of the other things that really helped me in my recovery was my brother. He used to send me videos of celebrities that have gone through mental health issues and, you know, giving their story. And all of a sudden I wasn't alone. It was like this person.
Tyson Fury's the main guy, right? Out of England. I mean, heavyweight champion of the world.
Yeah, he was one. Footballers, about soccer players for you. You know, and that was huge because not just was this another person that was going through what I was doing, a lot of the things they were saying were word for word things that I'd said to my wife that morning. I used to show her the video and go, listen to this. And it was almost word for word, something that I'd described to her.
Yeah.
And that sense of me not being on my own and not being strange or crazy or odd, that really helped me. So that was where the idea for the blog website came from. I've got loads of stuff written down here, and I feel comfortable about being public about how I am. And if I can help one person feel better to understand that they're not on their own, that it's logical. If I felt like this way, then surely someone else does.
So what would be, I mean, let's say somebody that doesn't know of your website just yet, and just somebody that's like going through this, like, what would be your message? Like, what are the lessons learned? What's the step-by-step thing for how to get out of this like funk? Like, what's your advice?
Yeah, the first bit of advice is talk to somebody. Talk to somebody. Not just will it make you feel better and it'll lift that sense of lift off your shoulders, this weight that you've had on you all this time. Not only does that get lifted, but psychologically, like writing something down, saying it out loud is so different to saying it inside your head.
And also, you know what?
You hear yourself say it. Yeah.
You know what's also interesting is sometimes when you say something, when you hear yourself say it, you could be like, what am I talking about? And you could realize you're wrong, because you just say like,
absolutely,
I don't love myself. I'm not smart. I'm not intelligent. I'm not handsome. And then you just hear that and you're like, what the hell are you talking about? Stop being silly,
Exactly.
Okay. So
by airing, you take the power away from it.
Yep.
It loses its power. And the other thing is people want to help you. You can't do it on your own.
Yeah.
And you don't need to do it on your own. There are free phone lines you can ring. If you haven't got someone you feel you can speak to, you can ring people. There's people who want to speak to you, who want to help you. And you'll be amazed at the amount of people that want to help you once you are open about how you feel.
Once you're vulnerable.
And it snowballs from there. That is the most important thing you can do, is talk to someone.
What about, what about the micro routines? Like, did you change anything in your day-to-day routine? Did you decide to, I'm going to start doing music. I'm going to start doing art. I'm going to get in shape. Like, what were the main changes that you made that turned you? Because now look at you. You're looking good. You're on top of your stuff. You got a huge blog. You got people following you. You're giving people great advice. So how did you build yourself? How did you build yourself up into the person that you are now?
It starts with a routine. You need routine. You could say as humans, we crave routine anyway. But the thing about setting a routine when you are depressed is, I touched on it earlier about having that loss of control. There's that loss of, of things being done to you. You can't control any of it. Well, if you set yourself a routine, you can control what you are going to do and when you're going to do it during the day. So set yourself a routine. Mine was very basic at the start. As I said, it was brush your teeth, have a wash, eat some food. And if I could achieve those things in one day, wow, what a day. And it builds from there. It would, for one day, the only thing I had to achieve that day, once I got those basics back in, eating, washing, drinking, once I got them back in, it would be, speak to the doctor. Or have my work call. I would speak to my boss once a week, and that'd be the only thing I had to do that day. And the sense of achievement, and I could think back at it now. Once I'd done that, it was in the morning. That wiped me out. I'd be done for the whole day. Bizarre, but the more you bring that routine in, you can then build on it. And again, that snowballs. So once you're okay doing these next few things and they become routine for you again, add to it. Try and do something each day then that brings you joy.
There you go. There it is. Yeah. Yep.
And
bring joy into your life by doing the things that bring you joy. But in order to figure out, in order to do that, you have to figure out what you like. What are those things that bring you joy? And a lot of people, unfortunately, even kids, like, you're programmed to go to school, you're programmed to get a job. You're not programmed to ask yourself, what brings you joy and find time for those things that bring you joy, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Going outside, go outside, you know, what a difference that makes to you. You know, we got a dog. That got me outside because it got me walking the dog. I might only go up the street, but then the next minute I'm walking around the block. I developed social anxiety. I couldn't answer the front door because I was staying in so much.
Oh, wow.
You know, I would hide behind the front room door. So they couldn't see me through the window. They couldn't see me through the glass from the front door in the hallway. And I'd just wait for them to go. You know,
can't imagine that. Seeing, I mean, knowing you now, I mean, I can't, that's so mind boggling, you know, like dark, it's like day and night.
Yeah, exactly. So that would get me outside because I'd go on walks with it, and eventually the walks would become longer. And you know, it's small steps, and you build on them. I've changed as a person now. I say I'm the same person, but I'm a totally different person to what I was before this happened, and that's sort of shown in you talk there about you know, what your values, what things bring you joy. You know, I'm still not back playing the guitar. I've tried it. I've kind of enjoyed it when I've done it, but it doesn't spark that, you know, that it used to.
Have you thought about literally, like, you know, finding a place either in a park on a nice day, invite like 10 of your friends, 15 friends, invite your kids, do a picnic, take out your goddamn guitar and just sing some music for people and have other people also sing together. Just like do a little, it doesn't have to be a formal thing. Just like bring it out and then see. I guarantee you, I promise you this, like you'll see the way that people are reacting and the smiles that they're going to have on their face. And that's going to give you that hit of dopamine and that like the joy, whatever chemical. And you're going to be like, wow, like this is so much easier than I thought, you know?
Yeah.
Because I see the guitar behind you. Yeah.
Yeah. But I don't beat myself up about not doing it anymore. I was almost forcing myself to do it and I wasn't enjoying it. And then, well, I have to. You know, that's what I do. So I have to do that. But I am now finding passion in other things, such as, you know, and this sounds really cheesy every time I say it, I've got to get over this. You know, one of my needs now is to help people.
Nothing cheesy about that whatsoever. It's actually noble, and that's what we should be doing. Yeah.
But if I'm not doing that now, you know, it will affect me. One of my other needs now is to learn. You know, I've been doing lots of courses and stuff around, you know, to help me out with the route that I want to go down. A lot of it is mindfulness, life coaching. I'm doing a psychology diploma now online. You know, I need to be learning each day. I need to spend a little time each day learning, and that gives me a buzz. So whereas I used to work in the day and then in the evenings, I would fill my time with playing guitar or, you know, doing some artwork or whatever. Now it's expanding my knowledge, learning things, helping people. So it's not that I'm not doing anything because I'm not playing guitar anymore. I've filled that gap with something different that works for me, that fits to my values. And this is one of the exercises that I go through with my clients, with people I know. I said the other day to my kids, I said, promise me when you get to the point of choosing your career, sit down with me and I will help you and I will guide you through that process. You know, I get people to pick their values, top 5 values. What are the things that mean the most to you in life out of this list? And unless your activities are aligned with those values, then you're going to hit problems.
Yep, for sure.
And that's what I live by now. Every activity that I do has to align with my values. Another huge tool that I use is meditation. I use meditation. I meditate every day, you know, and that really helped me out when I was in the depths of the depression. As I started to get better, I used meditation. And again, for me at the time, that was meditation. That's a weird thing that people do, that go off, climb up a mountain and it's all, you know, and it's not. You know, I used to think about it was just getting out of your mind and going to transcendental place. It's not.
Or you could just say it's just being still and not doing anything.
Exactly.
It's just, you know,
it's bringing yourself back in. It's centering yourself.
Yeah. It's being aware of your thoughts and no actions. Just think, breathe, and be with yourself. Like if you can't do that, then, you know.
Exactly.
Good luck.
And that's where the mindfulness comes into it for me. And a lot about that mindfulness for me is, we talked about the shift in mindset. Mindfulness has been so important for me because I've spent so many years training my thought process to be negative, to beat myself up, to tell myself that this has happened, therefore it's my fault. And you know, the great news for people is that if you are like that, that's a learned behavior. And what is learned can be unlearned. And you can learn a better way to do that. And that's where mindfulness comes in for me, about changing my thought processes to be more resilient. What life throws at you, you know?
So tell me about now, like, you know, what you're working on, your online courses, how that's been going, and how can people find you online?
Yeah. So it's all stemmed from the blog. So the blog is very much around mental health. A lot of the blogs that I do are around depression and anxiety, about positiveness. But I do have some guest bloggers on there that talk about their issues as well. I've got a guy called Dan Tandy who does some blogs on it, and he's got OCD and some other conditions. So there's a real rounded you know, categories of blogs on there that really do help people. So that's Huckleberry Grove, huckleberrygrove.com. And the sort of what feels for me as the next stage for me, as I said, with the stuff that I've been learning, life coaching, mindfulness, and all that sort of stuff, I can identify the things that affected me as a parent. So we talked about a lot of that before. And a lot of my issues were around parent guilt. And parent guilt's not something really that's that commonly known, or it, you know, as soon as you start describing it to a parent that is struggling, they go, that's me. You know, that's exactly what I'm like. That's exactly what I've got at the moment.
Give a couple examples.
Oh yeah, parent guilt is doesn't matter what you do, it's never good enough, and you beat yourself up for that. You believe your kids deserve better than what it is that you can provide for them and what you do provide for them. So no matter what you do, it's not good enough.
It's never good enough.
There's a whole host of problems that stem from that line of thinking. You know, self-esteem issues, depression, anxiety, all sorts of stuff. So if you can, you know, one of my biggest bugbears with mental health, and this is me, I'm guilty of this. You know, you touched on it earlier when you said we've all got mental health, is that
issues.
Yeah, people don't act on their mental health, look after their mental health a lot of the time until crisis point.
You
know, and that bugs me, and it's true. You know, I'm guilty of it, of other things. You know, when I played football or soccer, you know, I remember getting an injury, and I'd go to the physio, and the physio would give me exercises to do, and you know, I'd go home and I'd start doing them, and it'd start feeling a bit better, and then I'd stop doing the exercises because I started feeling a bit better, and then I'd get the injury again, and I'd go and see the physio, and the physio would say, "You've been doing your exercises, Dave," and I'd say, "No." Well, why did you? Well, I felt better. And it's like that with mental health. When you start feeling better, or you don't feel bad at all, you don't think you need to do anything about mental health. And that's where the issues start. So everyone should be doing things to look after their mental health. You know, a case of prevention is better than the cure. Why wait till you hit crisis point to then start making changes? Why not look after your mental health all the time? It's possible to do that. So the I've got a new course that I'm starting up now called the Parent Story Project.
Mm-hmm.
And it's called the Parent Story Project because when I help people, when I talk to people, it's always important to get that story across, my story. So it's a case of, for you as a parent, what is your story going to be? You know?
How do you write your narrative? Yeah. How do you reflect on?
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what I created our app for, because we give
Yeah.
you a place where, that's what we're doing is
Yeah.
we give you the prompts. We categorize all different aspects of your life experience, starting from your childhood, your relationship to your parents, your high school, your college, your child, your interests, movies, books, everything. And you can journal about that. You can upload photos, you can upload videos. So it's
Yeah.
useful for you as a parent because you'll get to know yourself better. But even
Yeah.
more importantly, you're going to be able to share that with your kid, right? So you're not journaling for yourself. You're journaling it because you want to share it with your child eventually, for them to
Yeah.
better understand who their parents were, who their father was.
Fantastic.
So yeah, that's why, it's super
Yeah.
important.
And it is important. And, if you, as a parent, if you go online and press Google and do, parents or parenting or something like that, the main source of advice you can get is around parenting tips,
Yeah.
how to cope when your child is doing this, or what to do in the terrible twos, or what to do when they're a teenager. But there's not much advice and help out there for the parent themselves, for them as the parent. So not how to be a parent, but for them themselves to look after themselves. If all these parenting books that you get before you become a parent were talking about mindfulness and things you can do to look after your mental health
Oh
and
yeah.
warning signs around mental health and this sort of stuff, how to look after yourself, how to ensure that it's not everything about the children. You need time for yourself. You need to look after yourself. There's a great analogy that I use around when you get on a plane and the air stewardess does the safety thing at the start. When she talks about the oxygen masks coming down or a life jacket, they say, put yours on first before you help your kid, because you're no use to that child if yours isn't sorted.
Yep.
And this is the same message I give to the parents. You've got to look after yourself. It can't all be about the kids, because as I learned the hard way, I'm no use to those kids if I've got depression, serious mental health issues, or if, heaven forbid, I did something to myself. You're no
Yeah.
use to. So you've got to ensure you take time for yourself, and you might feel guilty about that then. I felt I couldn't take time out, go spend the weekend with my friends or do this, because that money I felt should have been spent on the family. So that's where parent guilt comes in. I'm guilty about spending money on myself. I'm guilty about spending time on myself.
Yeah.
I should be spending it with the family. But that help's not out there for parents. That advice isn't out there really. And that's what this course is about. I don't want to be in the same position I was in.
Mm-hmm. Of course. You're spot on. I'm just thinking there's so much that we could talk about also for kids, things that you want to pass down to your kids, life lessons, kind of all this stuff. Sorry, I'm having like a brain fart because we've like gone through so much.
Yeah. I'm just trying to think some of the things
well,
advice for other parents. We have touched on that, I guess.
Yeah. Let's talk. So the coursework, like I saw that you have like seminars, you have courses. So you're basically like starting kind of a new career, a new kind of passion about being kind of a coach or a mentor for other parents. And what's your goal with this? Like you want to, ideally this is what you want to do, right? This for you is probably more interesting than an office job. It definitely seems like it's more fulfilling. And I definitely feel like this is, something that your life has kind of forced you to have to understand. And I think it's super noble and important that you want to help other parents as well, because you don't know how many people are going through it, especially if people don't talk about it.
Yeah.
So I think it's amazing what you're doing.
Okay. But it goes back to, again, I almost need a different phrase for this, because I've said this before and it's not the right phrase, but from a selfish perspective, this need of mine now to help other people. We always say we don't do anything. Everyone does something for a reason. Well, that's my reason for doing it. I have a need to be sharing my experience and helping people.
I think today, like, we could probably like finish, just because I think, I mean, we've been talking for almost 2 hours and we have a lot. I'll listen to it. I'll send it to you, and then we could have like listen, we could do like, regular calls where me and you just chat about like what you've learned, what I've learned. I think it's an interesting platform, and plus, like, you're literally living it and you're reading it. Plus, I've read a lot of these books.
Yeah.
Carol Dweck, you probably read Mindset, right? Jordan Peterson, you've heard of as well, probably, right? Yeah. So, yeah, let's think about an interesting format where we could literally have like calls like once every couple of weeks and just be like, hey, these are the things that I've learned. These are the parents that I've talked to. I could talk about my stuff as well.
Yeah. Sounds good. Cool. Sounds good. I've enjoyed it.
Yeah. I appreciate you. I know it's probably not easy talking about all that stuff, but I appreciate you being honest about it.
Yeah. Well, it gets easier the more you do it.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with it. And that's the thing, is like, we have a stigma, like, oh my God, like this normal, man. Like, people, I'm not, like, there's a lot more people more messed up than us. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of people that do a lot of fucked up things. You know what I mean? Like, they drink more, they beat their fucking wives, they beat their kids. There's, you're doing a hell of a job. You know what I mean? You shouldn't be so hard on yourself. And,
ultimately, the way I get around it when I start doubting or thinking, it's hard to say things and hard to discuss certain subjects, is I just go back to, I can't tell other people to talk about how they feel because it's good for them if I won't do it myself.
Of course.
And if by me doing it, it helps one person open up about how they're feeling, which could save a life.
Which could save a family, which could save their kids' lives and then their grandkids' lives, because it's all generational stuff, right? Like, your karmic actions or whatever you do is going to influence their life, right? If your parent committed suicide, first of all, that's always going to be, I know lost survivors. Like, I have friends, it's not easy. And those things change your life. So, and they don't only change your life, they change the lives of the people that you affect and your kids and everything else. So, if you always keep that in mind, like, you are the head of the household, it is your responsibility. Like, you're responsible for your grandkids and your great grandkids. You know what I mean? Yeah. So the things that you instill in your children and the example that you set, and their mindset's going to ripple on, and, who knows what that's going to end up turning into in the world, right? Yeah. It's all potential.
Because I guess what we didn't talk about as well is, we got onto it a little bit, but how open I am with my kids now about my situation, and how we've addressed that with them.
Have you talked to them about kind of your,
And it's kind of the thing when people ask us, people say, oh, what have you told the kids? And we say, I've told them. They kind of go, oh, have you? But our viewpoint is that we want our kids to talk to us. We want to be open. We don't want to add to a stigma around this stuff. I'm doing all this work to get rid of the stigma around it. So I don't want to make an issue about it, and my kids think, oh shit, there's something he's not talking about here. We've only recently addressed the suicide stuff with them. I always talked about it as me just wanting to go away. So we talked about the depression and the anxiety and stuff like that. But that side of it was always just, me not wanting to be here. But we talked about it with them last week. The more open I am and the more it's out there in the public domain, I wouldn't want someone to say it to my kids and it become a surprise to them. I want us to be completely open and honest about it, so that if anyone did say, because I worry about them going to school, and kids can be little fuckers, can't they? Kids can be horrible,
Yeah.
And what if someone was to start trying to bully my kids because of me being open about what I'm going through? So my viewpoint, and my wife shares this viewpoint, is that if we're open and honest with them, then if someone does say this stuff to them and try and, oh, your dad's this, your dad's that, it'll be like water off a duck's back, because they'll be like, yeah, I know that. It's, that's I want it to be normal. I want us to be able to talk about this stuff.
And plus, you're showing them, your son and your daughter, an example that you should be talking about it, right? So they don't repeat the same mistakes of living 30-something years and not talking to anybody, including you guys, which should be the first people that they talk to if they have any sort of issue. So you're setting the example by doing the difficult thing and saying, look, I am an open book, I am vulnerable, but I want you to be too.
Yeah. And to get rid of the stigmas that I attach to myself with them as well, it takes strength to talk about it. You're not weak, you are strong in doing it. And by showing them that, that will become their beliefs.
Yeah.
So anyway, we were going to pack up, weren't we?
We were, but yeah, I mean, you're touching on good things, How about in the next conversation, we focus on other things that we try to instill in our kids, right? Life lessons, things that you've learned, and how you see that that's either working or not working, because that's super interesting as well. Cool.
Yeah. Brilliant.
All right. Okay. We're wrapping up the first conversation, the first of many. I appreciate it. Yeah, man. It's good to see you.
You too.
We'll talk soon.
Yeah, I look forward to it.
All right. Thanks, Dave.
Have a good day, bro.
Take care, brother. Bye.
Our lives are not linear. What we remember is not defined by time, but by experience. We remember the emotions and people surrounding specific moments and live time as one continuous day that is the experience of our lives. One of the most important, meaningful, and challenging experiences we face is being and becoming parents. These are conversations about moments in our lives, what they have taught us, and the questions we all face about how to live in the world.